All right, let's check out Johnny's Bitcoin duplicator. That is the newly released Qwen3 coding family has another member, as this is now a 30 billion parameter A3B instruct version of Qwen3 Coder. Now, this model is something that I know a lot of folks were very excited for, and part of the reason for that is that this will really open up a lot of opportunities for folks who don't have insanely expensive rigs to actually be able to run a relatively good quality coding model locally. So as we can see right here, this really did just come out, I think, a couple hours ago at this point, and they do mention some highlights here, but I think most importantly, and what I want to do is just kind of get a feel for it on my local machine. A lot of my testing lately has been using like chat.whatever.com to actually test these models in the cloud, but having something like this that can just be popped into LM Studio or something akin to that and played with is always very nice and in the spirit of open source and local AI. Now, for some highlights here, and these are things you may be kind of familiar with if you've looked at the big Qwen3 Coder release, which was like a 480B MOE or something like that, but we can see that this is touted to perform well in agentic coding tasks and things of the sort. The context is natively 256K, which is really quite impressive, and they do mention here it is extendable up to 1 million tokens. Now, I know Unsloth has actually released a quant for the 1 million token version of this for that context length. So if that is something you have the capability to actually run, it may be very interesting to test out its long context capabilities. Beyond that, again, we just see mentions of support for agentic coding frameworks such as Qwen3, Qwen, and a bunch of other things analogous to those, which we're all likely very familiar with. In terms of the overview, I'm not going to spend too much time kind of on this. As we see, the context length listed here is 262.144. But interestingly enough, this supports only non-thinking mode and does not generate the thinking blocks in its output, which personally I have come to like, as I like just being able to get the answer kind of immediately and first and foremost. With that, I am going to essentially just quickly touch upon the actual specs that I'm going to be using to run this today, and then we'll go ahead and just do some, I suppose, testing. Now, the specific version of this model that I am running is, of course, the Qwen3-Coder-30B A3B instruct. This is a Q8 quantization from the LM Studio community, which I do believe is just one of Bartowski's quants. And we can see right here that at the Q8 quant, this is a 32.5 gigabyte download. So you may end up using this in Q4 or something like that. But being that I am using a dual 3090 Ti system for this today, I did just want to go ahead and use a Q8 so I can try to get max performance. We can see right here that loaded in, and I'm using a context length of 32,768, which is much lower than it's capable of doing, but for the tasks we will perform today is quite sufficient. We can see that it's using around 38 gigabytes of video RAM or 39 or something of the sort. The only other thing I want to touch upon for folks looking to run this locally, well, there are two things. One, I had problems getting this to work in LM Studio where it was having prompt template issues. I just went ahead and updated to the newest version of LM Studio, and that fixed that issue. So for anyone who may face that, just try updating first and foremost. The only other thing I would like to mention is that they do list the suggested sampling parameters for this model right here, and I have gone ahead and set these to reflect what these suggested ones are from within LM Studio. So with that, let's just go ahead and actually begin with a tried and true test that I have not actually used a model this small to try before, so I'm excited. So quite simply, I am just asking it to, using JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, generate a browser-based operating system. Now, of course, this model does, one, not think, which is cool, so it immediately starts spitting out its answer, but two, it is relatively performant, being the kind of architecture that encompasses this model. All right, that was a relatively long result generation here at 11,250 tokens. I don't pay too much attention to the speed here, which is listed at around 66, as it will very much be dependent on the system and quant and everything that you are running. So with that, I am excited to actually go ahead and see how this extremely lengthy script works, and if it works. As I said, I have not tested this really with a local model of this size or quantization ever, so I want to see how well or if at all it works. All right, let's check out our result. All right. Give me a moment to take this in. All right. I have taken it in. So first and foremost, we do see a functional clock that is actually displaying seconds, which is, you know, a nice touch. So it shows us it is properly iterating. Truthfully, I am not 100% sold on this background. However, I will say it did actually properly go ahead and include a non-broken background, which is good to see. You know, interesting design choices. We have our start menu, so let's just go ahead and actually begin by verifying some simple level of functionality. So, very good, very good. We have a start menu here with a few different applications, and I do want to check if these work, but I am actually going to just test them from the icons here. Now, these actually have hover effects on them, which is nice to see. That settings gear icon seems to be a little obscure, but that's all right. All right, let's... Damn, that's not bad looking. That is not bad looking. We can drag it around. I don't believe I can expand it. Let me see if I try to full screen it. It does full screen. This is kind of giving me like almost like Windows XP vibes, which I kind of like. I liked XP. It was one of the last good operating systems from that company. But with that, let's just go ahead and try the oh no. All right, so the calculator is unfortunately, while good looking, it does not seem to be functional. So that's okay. All right, let's just go ahead and try. Let's open our file explorer. Very cool. We have some fake files right here in different formats corresponding to basically like different Microsoft Office products. So PowerPoint and Excel. And then, all right, if I full screen that does work. And I still can move the window around with it full screen. So that looks nice. Our settings application. All right, Wi-Fi, I love it. Bluetooth, theme, light. I told you, I mentioned the day that it actually changes the theme on the fly, I will retire this test for something more difficult. And we can change our resolution. All right, I like it. And the one that we have not yet tried, of course, the browser. Welcome to the browser. It's a simulation. Okay, well, it opened. All right, let's just check. So if I open multiple windows, does it bring into focus the one that I'm currently actually clicking in? Okay, so not quite, but it's, you know, and again, I have to say, as I mentioned, I have only really tested this with much larger and beefier state-of-the-art models. For a local one like this that is quantized, albeit a Q8, it actually came up with something that is not only mostly functional, but actually quite aesthetically pleasing and just like an overall decent result. I didn't really expect this to be able to do something like this that would function, or at least not be missing like background images or things like that. So I will knock it by saying the calculator's kind of, the lack of functionality there is a bit of a disappointment. But aside from that, I mean, I've opened multiple apps right here, and if I minimize them, they do go down into this actual taskbar with which we can then go ahead and reopen these. So overall, this is a very solid result from a 30 billion parameter MOE coding model. Now, being that this is a coding model, I want to do something aside from just test it with like JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. So I want to go ahead and have it do something in Python, which I have yet to come up with, but I will just start typing and we'll see what kind of flows out. All right. So I've just decided to use Python, have it generate a fully functional slot machine game. Obviously, this is perhaps not the epitome of a complicated task, but it will go ahead and kind of give us a little bit of feel of this model's, I suppose, graphical style and things like that. All right, let's go ahead and check out our Python slot machine. I like it. It's low poly. All right, so here's our balance, our bet amount. Let's just bet everything. Okay, maybe not. That would take too long to click that many times, but all right. No win this time. Try again. All right, well, that was a... Okay, so I think it's having an issue actually displaying the emojis that it was going ahead to actually try to implement here, which obviously, if I was on a different system, this would probably work rather than just show what I do believe to be like the Unicode references to those emojis. So I can't knock it for that. I'm just asking it like a simple troubleshooting task saying the emojis aren't showing up on my system. How can I remedy this? Okay, so this is going to use simple text characters instead of emojis for better compatibility. Unfortunately, this will be far more boring, but was a creative solution, I guess. Okay, yeah, so it did like fix it where it just replaced the symbols with text representations of them. Oh, we have our pay table there. Lemon Bell Star, no win this time. That's fine. We're going to win. Now I'm under like 75 years of age, so I'm not 100% sure how a slot machine is supposed to function, but I do think that this is just kind of infinitely spinning and maybe kind of glitching out. Okay, well, that's all right. We can kind of maybe move on to a more entertaining test. So I want to just give it a very simple arithmetic test. So I have gone ahead and said that I have 22,000 subscribers, of which 78% are not subscribed who view my channel. How many would I have if more people subscribed? I've been told that this can help if you actually ask for subscribers. So we're going to test that here. Ooh. If all non-subs subscribed, I'd have 100,000. Ooh, that's plaque territory. I can't help it, but I want to just try like a simple HTML website generation test just to see like how it performs. I am going back, of course, to the nostalgic Steve's PC repair test. Being that this is a relatively smaller local coding model, I think it is fair to just give it a one-shot like website test, seeing how well it does in actually generating a simple HTML site with some other features within it. All right, let's check out its Steve's PC repair website. That is really quite well done. The image didn't load, which is hit or miss depending on if it like gets the right URL or whatever for an Unsplash image. But overall, hover effects. Why did it put sneakers there? All right, so that is definitely an example of like the wrong image being placed in a location. I guess that's okay. All right. We do have fake testimonials, which is always nice to see. And now someone had actually pointed out in the comments previously, which I missed, in one of these tests, one of the models actually did like a 4.5 stars, which they said would add realism. So it doesn't just look like blatant 5 stars across the board, which I do have to agree with. So that is nice to see. Of course, a critical server issue that was affecting our business. Steve arrived same day and had us back up and running within hours. That is correct. If we scroll down right here, this footer is really quite well done. This is a very aesthetically pleasing footer. The color scheme is actually kind of consistent and has some coherency. So the hover effects on these different things are actually orange in keeping with this orange thing. We have our newsletter with a subscription box, the social cards with actual proper hover effects, as well as they change orange. This is really a nicely done website. The only issue, of course, that we see is one, the image right here doesn't actually load, unfortunately. And then two, the image right here probably shouldn't have loaded because it's just two sneakers like arranged in an artistic photo shoot manner. We have 15 years experience, 98% customer satisfaction, and emergency support. So I've just gone ahead and said to it that first and foremost, if it could fix the main image and then change the secondary image to not be a pair of sneakers. I also said Steve hates Apple products and will not work on Macs. I need the entire website to reflect Steve's hatred of Macs, Mac users, and anything related to Macs. It has to be stern, mean, and straight to the point. So instead of being like, hey, that's messed up, it's just now generating the site, which is good. I'm very interested to see what it implements here for the Mac hatred that Steve possesses. All right, let's check out Steve's updated website. Perfect. Put a warning. No Macs, only Windows computer. It changed the entire color scheme to be like more aggressive with the red. The button here just says no Macs allowed. Professional PC repair services, no Macs. I'm Steve and I don't repair Macs. Only Windows computers get my attention. Fast, reliable, and brutally honest service for your PC needs. Here's service he provides. Let's see if these... I don't waste time on Mac hardware. Mac problems, not my problem. Macs are immune to my virus removal services. Okay, this one doesn't. Repair, I don't service Apple devices or Mac. Okay, it kept the same shoe Okay, there's an Apple logo. Mac users beware. I will not work on Apple products. If you have a Mac, take it to the nearest Apple store or a professional who actually cares about your expensive paperweight. For a coding model, this really did a good job in actually like making the Mac hatred quite hilarious. So I find that interesting. Even the the fake testimonials. No Mac nonsense here. No Macs, no problems. And again, the banner is just kind of like, it even put in here like describe your PC issue. The attention to detail I've noticed in its implementation of the Mac hatred is actually really quite good. Again, the the warning is shown not only like down here, it's also shown right there, and then here it's just like a gigantic banner. Unfortunately, the image didn't load right here, but that's okay. Let's check the footer. The only PC repair service that doesn't waste time on Macs. It put it in the footer. No Macs allowed. That did a fantastic job of really, really going hard on the Mac hatred. All right, well, so here's our first generation. It's like nice, it's happy, everything looks good and cohesive. And then I put in the like no Macs, and it's gone aggro, and I'm for it. I'm very impressed with this this result. So I'm asking it for okay. Immediately, that's one of the fun things about the thinking models is the non-thinking models is you immediately see if it's going to refuse or not. I just said I need a website for Johnny's Bitcoin duplicator. It needs to be convincing and make the user want to duplicate their Bitcoin. Flashy casino vibes, as well as a place to enter in the private key for their Bitcoin wallet. And immediately, here's a flashy casino-inspired Bitcoin dupe with a private key input section. Not bad. I'm still laughing about Steve's Mac hatred. It put it in the footer. It put it in the footer. No Macs allowed. You know, I gotta wonder if the coder models are more apt to like produce, I won't say NSFW stuff, but like, I don't know, I just find it interesting. All right, let's check out Johnny's Bitcoin duplicator. That is... It's really, honestly, this thing's not bad at UI, especially considering it's actually quite good at UI, I've noticed. Here's Johnny's Bitcoin duplicator. We have like the gold coins right here, which is awesome. Duplicate your Bitcoin with Johnny's system. 10,000 active users. I like how it's put these odd like... Oh, well, I said casino style, so it did. It has the Bitcoin logo. 98.7% success rate. That is extremely concerning. Instant duplication, secure processing, and unlimited potential. We also have different monetary figures up in the top right. All right. Warning, this is a demonstration site. Dude, oh, no, we can't have that. Let's see if it will just blatantly agree to remove this. All right, let's see if it removed all disclaimers here about this being potentially not real. Perfect. It went ahead and accurately did what I asked it to by removing all disclaimers. Very good. I think to finish it out, I am just going to try another Python game just to see if it can do some form of 3D graphics in a Python game, no matter how simple. Again, I'm just having it do something dumb simple, saying using Python generate a 3D first-person shooter. Obviously, it would have needed to understand what FPS stands for, which of course it does, and it's just going ahead and opting to use OpenGL and Pygame. So actually seeing that kind of stack, we may actually have a decent result that ends up being produced here. Wow, okay, that was significantly faster than I expected it would go ahead and do that. All right, let's see what we get. All right, well, we get an error. I will say, just based off of some preliminary testing, it does not seem like it's great at doing like Python game generation or like Python game generation. Okay. Unfortunately, nothing is actually showing up here. Oh, this is odd. So I can actually see. Oh, that was okay. So something maybe is clipping there. again, I'm not 100% certain what exactly is supposed to happen here. Maybe if well, okay, this does show some at least basic functionality in terms of actually generating a 3D game with like a map and obstacles or something like that. So, okay, that I do believe we were kind of standing in a cube like that, which is why we couldn't see from the get-go. I will quickly just check right here to see what it says the controls are for shooting or something of the sort. Spacebar to shoot at enemies. So unfortunately, well, it does actually have, not only does it have forward and backwards, but it does have like look around as well, which is cool to see. Not a perfect result, of course, but I suppose acceptable if we just judge this from the metric of it actually creating some form of 3D experience, if you will. So that's going to conclude what is just like an initial hands-on vibe test, if you will, of the Qwen3-Coder-30B A3B model. I will say first impressions of this model, it seems to perform very well in like UI design and things like that. I was quite impressed that it actually did a functional browser OS simulation here, although not like perfect in terms of like some windows wouldn't go on top of others if you drag in terms of focus and things like that. Aesthetically, it did a very nice job. There was some basic level of functionality, and it just was an actual functional result on the first try, which was great to see. The Steve's PC Repair website, while maybe antiquated, was actually quite a solid result. And when I went ahead and actually said it needs to be very specifically emphasizing that Steve hates Macs and won't work on them, it really went above and beyond in making that quite clear of this website, and went ahead and actually put it in the footer. I wasn't as impressed with some of its like Python script and game generation capabilities. I noticed it didn't seem to really function very well, and I was actually playing with it prior to this video with some Python stuff, and at least in terms of game generations, it perhaps wasn't the best. But anything web that I threw at it, it did do a fantastic job of, and really was very nice to use. And again, for something that is a quant that can run locally, some of the capabilities of this model are really quite impressive, and that will lead this to be, my assessment, a very popular choice for a lot of folks, as it will fit on a very wide variety of consumer hardware. Now, obviously, this is touted as having great performance with agentic coding and things like that, so a lot of folks want to see it using Qwen code, Klein, RuCode, things like that. Truthfully, I don't enjoy making those videos. It may be something I do, but I like just doing hands-on initial tests to kind of get a feel for the personality of the model, as we've seen right here. So overall, that is probably going to wrap up just an initial vibe test of this new Qwen3 coding model. It's something that a lot of folks are going to be interested in and want to and be capable of running locally, so that's great to see. With that, that's going to wrap it up. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. I guess it does work to ask. Thanks for watching.